causes an alarm for our age group. Now, the age of consent to any being presumed at 18 affects teenagers' access to contraception, as these are denied contraceptives upon request, and this is in different medical facilities. Now, every 26th of September, we get to celebrate World Contraception Day. Access to healthcare is very fundamental, and it's a human right. So we're going to be focusing on empowering the audience on the responsibility of our very own government as Uganda to provide mechanisms for easy access to contraceptives, and also the importance of youth being empowered with the knowledge on contraceptives. Elizabeth Achola, human rights lawyer and program officer at Women Pro Bono Initiative, gets to join us for this conversation. Good morning to you, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Priscilla.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
All right. And next to her, I am joined by a wonderful lady who is a youth health advocate and also the General Secretary for Makerere University Law Society. And her name is Kemigisha. Good morning to you, Julian.
Good morning to you.
All right. So let's start off with the understanding of the status of access to contraception by women, and especially the young adult girl in Uganda. I'll start with you, Elizabeth.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Briefly, once again, I'm Elizabeth Achola. I'm a program officer with the Women's Pro Bono Initiative. And at Women's Pro Bono Initiative, we are a women-led organization that provides access to justice to women and girls. And one of our objectives is to ensure that there's awareness of sexual reproductive health and rights to all women and girls. And this brings us to why we are here today. The issue of contraception use is very sensitive amongst us today and amongst all people that we interact with. So when we look at the status of contraceptive use amongst the youth, amongst the girls, we see that the variance is really not equal. You find that in rural areas, there are people who do not know anything about contraceptive use, but then when you come to the urban centers, maybe people are more privileged and they have access to internet, they have internet to newspapers, they have access to the TV like right now. But then when now here, that means that the statistics are going to differ. When we look at again the rural areas, those people that are less educated, maybe financially they are lower than those in the urban centers, their status of contraceptive use and knowledge is going to be lower than for that one in the city area. And the same applies to girls and young adults basically right now. So you find just like there are differences with urban and rural areas in women, the same applies to children. Sorry, not children, but young adults. There are those girls that are here in the urban centers. They are able to have more access to these services or knowledge, information, but then the girls who are mainly affected and face more cases of unintended pregnancies are those ones in the urban areas. They don't have access to information.
In rural areas.
Yes, okay. So the status is yeah.
All right, I'll turn to Julian. I know that you've had on-ground experience in terms of the gap between information and actually girls using these contraceptions options that are available on the market. Could you give us a ground experience of that, especially in comparison to rural versus urban?
Okay, thank you. Well, I would speak properly from the perspective of the urban centers, because that's where I've grown up. We are more informed about these decisions. We are more informed about our sexual and reproductive health. But this is not the case that happens in rural areas. You find girls as low as the age of 14 getting married. And I believe that they also need to be educated about all this, since they're exposed to this at such a young age. And it all goes back to the government. What is the government doing to prevent such child marriages? Or what is the government doing to encourage these young girls to go ahead with school and reach at the age of maturity in order to be able to get exposed to such things? Okay, all right. Yeah.
So what is the role of government in ensuring access to contraception?
I believe it is more in sensitization, guidance and counseling, because in like my primary, we were given classes about family planning, you know, to be used at a time when it's supposed to be used. but we're not all privileged to get such information. Yes, and I believe the government needs to put effort in rural areas, sensitize the children, encourage children to go to school, girls to realize their dreams, encourage them to say no to such tendencies, and I believe that with guidance, counseling, we can raise our girls in a society where they are aware, but they are not going to misuse the information that's given to them.
Okay. Madam Counsel, what is the status of the law on access to contraception in Uganda?
Yes, that actually also ties to what she has been saying on the role of government. When we look at our constitution, it provides for, we look at Article 33, it provides for the rights of women. And amongst those obligations that the state must do to ensure that women have equal access to have equality between men and women, one of the obligations that the law requires that the state should have in place is to also ensure that there are facilities in place where women are able to exercise their rights, and we are supposed to look at, you consider our maternal functions as women. So when you look at that article, it really provides that the government needs to protect, not only protect, but ensure that there are facilities in place to ensure that women are able to have their rights fully fulfilled. And then also there are other human rights instruments that the country has ratified. We have the CEDAW, we have the Convention on the Rights of the Child. All these human rights instruments, the country has ratified them and we have signed them. And all those laws require, they require that the state parties, Uganda being one of them, they are supposed to acknowledge that adolescents have access to information on contraceptives.
Okay, all right. So while we're having this broad conversation, there's also been the aspect of some young girls actually fear the repercussions of contraception use. We have seen it before when someone will tell you, oh, I'm on a pill, it does this to me. Another will say the injection does this to me, and or the coil does this to me. So the side effects that come with contraception are one of the fears that I believe do contribute to this conversation that we're having today. So how exactly are we controlling that to ensure that one, what they're getting is actually a safe option for them, not just for short term to prevent them from getting unwanted pregnancies, but also in the long term, because you said maternal health is important. But if this thing is going to cause me to then have to take another pill to undo what has happened, then why should I take it in the first place? Julian.
I think it again goes back to our services, our health services. I think they should be inclusive of guidance, of counseling. When you visit the doctor's offices, let's say a young couple goes to the doctor's office to inquire about such family planning methods, I think they should guide them and counsel them. This is what is most appropriate to your body. This is how it will react, and then they're able to make a decision. And it is also about between the man and the woman in the relationship or in the marriage. They should come to a conclusion. If it's going to affect the woman more, I think they should inquire about the better method to take on, because also the men can also be part of this contraceptive journey. And then also I think about focusing scientific research towards that aspect of contraceptives. Maybe there are other methods that are safer for the women, that are safer for the men, that can safeguard their interests when they are using contraceptives.
Okay. Elizabeth, this conversation seems to be so centered about women, but there's also options for men. Yeah. I think it can be a dual enforcement so that everyone is protected. Even our young men need to be protected. What do you say about that?
In my view, I believe that this conversation of contraceptive use and everything to do with sexual reproductive health rights is a conversation that has to involve both genders. You see, in families, most families, the norm is that the man is the head of the family. So it doesn't benefit the woman to have more knowledge, to be more sensitized on such a topic, and yet at the end of the day, there's going to be someone else who is going to, who is supposed to have a say in whatever decision they make. So this conversation that we are having, it's a discussion that both genders are supposed to be involved in. The awareness we are spreading, we are putting out there is not just for the women audience. The information is even for the men. All the men even have to be part of this discussion of contraceptives. If family planning is something that we believe is going to help prevent unwanted pregnancies, to prevent cases of high-risk diseases, children having cases of unsafe abortion, all those cases going low. And we all know that pregnancies, of course, involves both genders. So that's why I'm saying it's important for both genders to be involved. Okay. It's not something that is just for women. Okay, all right. Yes.
So clearly, Julian, there is the unmet need of sensitization, government's involvement. You have talked about the available options in the market and counseling that is needed for each individual that is actually desiring to go the contraception option for their own sexuality protection. How can these unmet needs actually be reduced?
I believe it has to be a collective effort of every aspect of the country, society, because at times society contributes, the way they look at this topic, yeah, it's a bit controversial and they don't understand the point from which it's coming. So I believe society has a part to play. Parents, guardians, teachers, we all have a part to play in this. It cannot be government alone fighting from one point. It has to be from also the society.
Okay, all right. So then it comes back to the purpose of sensitizing our audience on what are the benefits of what we're trying to talk about here today, being World Contraception Day. Yes. What are the benefits to family, to society that she's referred to our small communities when people actually do adopt family planning methods?
I think we've been hinting on some of the benefits. The main one, of course, because the background of this day of World Contraception Day is to ensure that every pregnancy is a wanted pregnancy. So how does that become a benefit? Because we want to ensure that when a woman gives birth, it's a pregnancy that she intended to have, that she wanted to have. It's not because it just happened out of the blue. We all know that the repercussions of some women giving birth and they don't want the children. So when you make informed decisions about the children you're going to have, about your family, you end up being in a position where you are able to plan. You look at your financial status, you're like, this is the number of children I'm going to have, I'm going to be able to take care of them. But if you don't plan that, then you're going to face a situation where you're not able to take care of all the children. But then also another benefit of knowing about contraceptive use is avoiding unsafe abortions. It's a very common thing that is happening among us, especially our teenagers. Many girls out there are getting involved in sexual acts at very young ages of like 13 years. So isn't it more important that they get to know that at least if I'm caught in the morning or something happens, there is something I can do to prevent this pregnancy and I'm able to continue school, meaning that school retention levels will be higher, meaning that cases of unsafe abortions will be lower, meaning that people will be more knowledgeable, because knowledge is power, right, at the end of the day. So knowing, basically having information about sexual reproductive rights gives someone power to take control of their body at whatever decision they make in life.
Okay, all right. Yes. So let's shed more light on World Contraception Day. Julian, what's World Contraception Day about? What's the theme and how are we celebrating it here in Uganda?
World Contraception Day is about spreading awareness of access to contraceptives, information about it, the benefits of using it, the future, what it entails to bring forward, and particularly today, what we are discussing is the access of these services to the youth. Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the legal frameworks, what should we be expecting that actually aids this discussion to be fruitful?
Well, legally, we have the provisions where the government provides rights for women, and there are many cases where the government has committed actually providing more resources towards family planning. So, and there are many policies out there that the government is trying to put forward to ensure that such services are able to reach different people. So, as far as the legal framework is concerned, the only part that the government needs to do now, and all of us, our role is to ensure that we follow what is written in the law and implement, because it's one thing to have it on paper, but the main thing right now is to ensure that all these provisions in our constitution, in the human rights instruments are implemented and made sure that all the services reach out to the people that we intend the services to reach.
All right, thank you so much, Elizabeth and Julian. And they bring to light the 26th of September 2020, where we get to celebrate World Contraception Day. And the point of this particular, is to actually ensure that every pregnancy is a wanted pregnancy. Of course, we all know what happened during COVID-19. For the 2 years, so many young girls got pregnant. They have also alluded to the fact that our cultures have been allowing some girls in some regions to get married as early as 14 years, and therefore their sexual reproductive health is at stake. Now they're calling on government to be able to aid in facilitating the continued conversation on contraception and how it's important, not just for self but also for community and the country at large. Now, speaking of at large, I do have Stephen Bide at large somewhere. Good morning to you, Stephen.
Thank you.